Blog Talk Radio.
All right, welcome to Conservative Counterculture Radio. This is your host, Val Villano, coming to you live from Eugene, Oregon. Tonight we have a very special show for you. This is going to be a very rare live interview with Reverend Jess LaVey, who is the son of Antony LaVey, the founder of the Church of Satan and author of the Satanic Bible. And this is going to be an extraordinary show. We're going to go ahead and get right into it with welcoming right now Jess LaVey. How are you?
Just great. Praise
All right. I'm so glad that you can join us here tonight. I know a lot of people are coming in to listen, and I just wanted to go ahead and let you kind of talk a little bit, and let's just start with your testimony, and we'll take it from there.
Okay. Well, I was born in the Church of Satan in East Berlin. They have what they call a mother church over there. And then brought back right after to the United States. And I grew up with two parents that were generational Satanists. And it wasn't an easy life. For some reason, I just couldn't adapt to my dad's ways. It was just something inside of me that was kind of different than the rest of the family. And growing up with Antony LaVey, which is my father, was very difficult. It presented a lot of problems between our relationship. I never grew close to him at all. I distanced myself as I got older, and it became rather difficult because he demanded that I, as he explained to me one day, that I had an obligation and I was born for a purpose of leading the church after he was gone. And I couldn't digest that. For some reason, I just couldn't accept it. So I spent a lot of time in my growing up living at home until I was 5. My uncle came and took me away. And there was a family brawl about the whole thing. My uncle was a very serious type person. It was my mother's brother who took me, and he was a very into the Indian culture because my mother was Cheyenne, and he, being a bachelor, he stuck me in the military school, and then kept my one of my sisters with him, my twin. And I sort of grew up in the military school half-time, and I was allowed to go home with my dad a few times during the years. But it always was a fight between us because he would make me go to the rituals, and I'd see these various things that would take place. And it was pretty hard to watch this stuff from sacrifice.
What kind of stuff in the rituals are you talking about there? For those that don't know what goes on there.
Well, some of the rituals, people would be sacrificed, and some members, mostly women, would sometimes give up their life to Satan, which they would allow themselves to be sacrificed, and that was hard to watch as a kid. I think I was about 10 years old when I saw my first one, and then from there, young kids around Halloween, it was really awful. It just the church itself was very into taking kids and distributing like lambs to the slaughter, so to speak, to the different parts of the church to be sacrificed. And I think I've seen that umpteen times. I've lost count how many times I've seen that part. And then there's the sexual rituals and all the other stuff that goes along with them. And I would find some way after I got into my teens to avoid that, run away and stay with friends and just avoid it altogether going with them. So I kept him mad all the time with me, at me. You know, he just couldn't understand why I wouldn't commit, because it's written that in the church books that I am to take the place, the firstborn young man is supposed to take the place of the high priest, his father. And so, you know, I felt bad, but then again, I couldn't do what he did. And I think it was about when I was 14, or it could be 10. I think it was 10. I started sending for, at the school, I started sending for, I saw an ad in the paper saying that they have Bible studies they sent out to people through the mail. So I grabbed onto that, and I sent for them and started doing them because, along with everything else, I used to listen to my dad argue with people in his office a lot. A lot of Christians would come to his office and try to, thinking they could convince him to become a Christian, and he would get into some heated arguments with them. And I used to listen to behind the door sometimes, or, you know, somewhere in the house, why I wondered why he hated God so much. I kept listening to these guys talk about God, and I became real curious as to why he hated God. So that's why I sent for the Bible studies out of curiosity to find out about this God they talked about, and find out why my dad hated him so much, or even the thought of, you know, Jesus. And after doing him for a couple of years, and I kept the fact that I was doing this very hidden, even from the school. And it became more than just a curiosity of wanting to know why my dad hated him. I began to see the difference between my dad and Jesus. You know, I even got more curious, so I started visiting churches. But unfortunately, it became quite a ordeal when I did that, is these people would find out who I am, and they'd make a big deal out of it. And they'd offer me these wheel deal salvation trips, like, you know, if you give me the info that I, you know, had about my dad, they would tell me how to be saved. And to me, that didn't seem right. And so I revolted against that. In fact, I even slammed the door as I walked out of one guy's office, a preacher's office. Because then another one told me you had to pay to become a Christian. And I got all kinds of trips thrown at me. And years went by, I kind of gave up. But I kept reading about Jesus. And I kept studying about him. And the more I kept studying, I felt drawn to it. But yet there was another side in me that wanted to avoid it. And
now, is there a time when your dad found out you were looking into Christianity? And if he did, I mean, how did he respond to that?
Well, it wasn't until actually I became saved. He found out later.
Oh, I see.
I kept it pretty hidden because I had to. But there was a war going on inside of me, too, as well. I had the demons there that were just trying to kill me off because they knew I was revolting against them. At the same time, I didn't know which way to go. I embraced the thought of suicide, and it wasn't until I did that. It was my last. I think I was 15. It was my last year at the military school before I go to college, and I was walking along. I had gone down to the beach with my surfboard to join a bunch of the other guys for a party on the beach, but I couldn't concentrate on it. I felt torn apart inside, and I just felt very hopeless, and I couldn't satisfy my dad, and I didn't see any point in living because I felt torn apart all the time, and not realizing what the demons were really doing inside of me other than just feeling torn apart and not belonging to any side. I felt suicide was the best option.
Right.
And so I left the party early, and it was pretty late at night, about 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock. I walked along the street, and I got up to a phone booth before the school, and I saw a card on the ground that said Vineyard Christian Fellowship. Well, I picked it up, and I actually called the guy on it, and for the first time in my life, this guy didn't care who I was. He just cared about helping me. And so he says, well, I'll meet you by the school. And at this time, I'd been talking to him for a couple hours. It got to midnight. And I had to be I was supposed to be long in the dormitory before then. So I snuck in, I changed clothes, and I met him outside. And he took me to his house and called his elder of the church, and they both spent the whole night and morning, all morning, praying for me in deliverance. I felt like I had gone through a terrific war, and he had wound up having to call the school to let him know that he has me and that I was in terrible shape. And so I remained at his house for a total of 3 days, going through deliverance. I mean, it was really bad. It was a real battle, real war.
Well, I imagine it was. And a lot of the, a lot of the guests that are listening tonight have commented about your voice being so high. Why don't you explain why that is?
My voice is high and not normal for a male my age because my dad castrated me at age 12.
Okay.
And that caused some problems in my growth, and my voice didn't develop. And I could have taken hormones for it as the doctor wanted to later in my life to cure the problem, but it would have caused some real severe medical problems. And I didn't choose to go that route. I chose to leave it as it is and live with it.
I want to make an announcement for those that are just joining us that we have on here Reverend Jess LaVey, former Antony LaVey, who is the son of Antony LaVey, which is the founder of the Church of Satan and the author of the Satanic Bible known as the Black Bible. The questions that you may have for the guest, you can ask in the chat room only for this show. There will be no call-in questions